Okay, so I'm here with Bellator fighter Brian Moore fighting out of SBG. He's got a fight coming up on the 23rd. Is it? It's 23rd September. I just want to go through his career with him today and the ups and downs of his career so far. So thank you very much for your time. And I just want to know what brought you into MMA, because I know you had a strong GAA background, and then what actually led you to go into MMA?
Yeah, well, like I was in my final year in college, so I was 21, and well, I was bored stiffless anyway, doing a course that I didn't really want to do, but I was doing my thesis. And anyway, I was at home from college on the weekends, and I seen an MMA fight, and it was actually Matt Serra versus GSP, and Matt Serra beat GSP, and GSP, even though he's my idol, I seen this little small guy being a world champion. And but even before that fact, I couldn't believe the sport that I was looking at. This was just amazing to me. And once I seen that, I was like, okay, I need to do this. I can't just look at it anymore and need to get involved. And that was it. And like, yeah, I played GAA since I was 5 years of age. I represented my county, but it was just like overnight once I found martial arts and I'd done my first Muay Thai class. GA was done with. For me as a competitor, I'm still a huge fan of it. But yeah, I was on a different path from that day on.
Yeah, so obviously, like when you moved over, what were your family and so what were their thoughts to move over? Because I know, especially back a long time ago, MMA isn't viewed as the way it is now, so technical and stuff like that. It would have been viewed quite differently. How was your family with you moving over to do it and away from GA? Because that's such a big sport within the country and within the county.
Well, the first thing I'll say is my wife is by a mile the biggest supporter I've ever had. Like, it's crazy. She's from originally from Cork. We met in Waterford in college after like a month in college, and we decided we're going to move to Wexford, and that was mainly because I didn't want to. I wanted to continue doing my GAA, and then after like a month of us being there, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing martial arts, and no problem, Brian. You know what I mean? She always has always been behind me. But in regarding, other family and all, yeah, they've been very supportive, but they thought I was crazy. They thought I was lunatic because I lost friends over it, believe it or not. They thought I was nuts to go and throw something like such a renowned and popular sport to go and pursue MMA. MMA, remember, it was very different back then and perceived very different than it is today. People didn't know what the hell I was doing. They thought I was doing fucking strongman or with a little mix of fucking bare knuckle boxing and every other sort of thing. But it wasn't. I just look at I fell in love with it, and I have the most amazing support system you can imagine, and that's why I'm here today.
And you're doing quite well. But what I want to know is, like, when you like, why would your friends walk away from you? Because that obviously GA is so big. I know a lot of family that love GA, and for me, it's not for me personally. And you can see how I can see how people would slight you. But to actually lose friends over, how did that actually make you feel then when like people walked away from you? Because you said your mindset changed, that you used to care what people think, and then you kind of
Mm.
there was a switch. Like when your friends walked away, is that when you started thinking, well, if they're going to walk away from me from this, then you shouldn't really take it into account too much what other people think, except for the likes of your wife and your close family.
Look at my like I'm petrified of death. That's just how I have been since I was a kid. So I'm gonna do everything to enjoy myself with the time that I have. Bar, I don't care what anyone thinks. It was a huge fault of me growing up when I was a teenager. I cared what everyone thought. I think a lot of people did. I genuinely couldn't give a bollocks what anyone thinks right now. Do you know what I mean? As
Yeah.
long as I'm happy and as long as my girls inside are happy, that will do me. But yeah, I lost friends back then. I've a lot of those relationships are back now, which is great. I don't hold any like grudges or resentment for that. I can kind of see where they're coming from, but on the same breath, if someone is going to pursue something that they really want to do and they're passionate about it and they love it, not causing any harm, I'm going to be back them. They didn't, but it's a different time. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not going to take it personally.
Yeah. So then you went from GA into MMA, like you said, the first class that you had. Tell us what it was like. Like, were you nervous, excited going into a class like that? Because I know you said you wanted to bring a friend and he kept putting on the long finger, but then you ended up just going yourself. So tell me what it's like first day coming from GA, walking into an atmosphere like that.
Yeah, it's something that, oh my God, I wish I could explain to people more to just be courageous and take that jump yourself. A friend of mine kept promising me each week he had a little bit of kickboxing that he would go with me, and I was like, come on, it's on this Tuesday, let's go. He was nah, no, he was just a lazy little fucker, but eventually I said, right, fuck it, I'm going to go myself. Do you know what I mean? So I rocked up into my first Muay Thai with a pair of Wexford GAA shorts. Couldn't wait to get going. But it was like a drug. I can't explain it. Like, I just couldn't believe I was doing this. I wanted to box ever since I was a very small kid. I remember wanting a green pair of boxing gloves. I remember seeing Steve Collins, and I just wanted a green pair of boxing gloves and to box. And you know, you can see where I'm living. I'm living in the back arse of nowhere here. So the nearest town is like 25, 30 minutes away. And, you know, I grew up with a GA field in walking distance. That's where obviously my parents wanted me going. But I eventually talked them into bringing me to a martial arts class, a boxing class. But literally 3 days later, I broke my arm and I never went back. You know, I broke it playing hurling and I went back playing hurling, of course. But yeah, like it was like a drug. I remember the first session we were sparring by using just jabs, and it was such a foreign feeling at the time, but an amazing feeling. And it's probably why I am a big jabber, probably
Yeah.
from that day, because I still get that feeling. Do you know what I mean? It was martial arts has done so much for me, but like everybody will, you know, if you can find what your thing is, martial arts is mine.
Yeah, no, and then obviously, like I said, that was probably your first real experience with martial arts, so that's probably why that stuck with you, just the
Yeah,
jabbing part.
yeah.
Then you go on, you had a very short amateur career, 3-0. It's different compared to the lads nowadays. Like, contrast the difference of an amateur scene then and an amateur scene now.
Oh my god. It was like the Wild West back then. It was hilarious. My first amateur fight, I had about 6 months total training. And I remember Googling and going on boards.ie looking for an MMA fight because I would always put pressure on myself because I'd started MMA at 21, 22, training, not even fighting. And I said, right, I need to fucking make some big steps. I'm not like, you know, Rory McDonald who's been doing it since he was whatever age. I need to make things happen. Plus, I was broke. Me and my wife, we had just finished college. I was working part time. Fucking hell, it was a mad time. So I wanted to get going. I wanted to, you know, hit the ground running. So I said I'll have a couple of amateur fights and I'll turn pro. And yeah, so I was googling, and all of a sudden there was a Wexford MMA show. I was like, "Fucking hell, what's this?" You know. So I contacted the promoter, and of course the promoter was like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have you because we're going to obviously sell tickets. It's in Wexford. Me and a couple of friends of mine." So I was matched up to fight a 0-0 guy. I was a 0-0 guy. That was fair. Week of the fight, or 2 weeks out, I can't remember what it was. That guy pulled out. So the promoter said, "Listen, we can't find another guy, so you're going to have to fight this other dude." And Alan Duffy is his name. So much time for Alan. Alan was a pro at the time, moving back down to amateur, which I don't think you're meant to do. But again, it was the Wild West, and I remember like being so scared. I was fucking petrified because I'd never been in a fight in my life. All right, and I was standing. Well, I was terrified for that couple of weeks, but I was standing ready to go out, and I was like, I don't give a fuck what's behind this door. I'm just going to give it my best. But the MC was like fighting out of you know, SPG Ireland. This not me at the time. This was Alan. You know, he was one of John's guys, and he is a former All Ireland wrestling champion. He's a former All Ireland boxing champion. And I was like, oh bollocks, you know. So we went in, you know, and then it was like, and then they announced him, and I hear this huge booing from this Wexford crowd. A lot of them are still behind me today, thank God. But then it was like, and his opponent from Wexford, Brian Moore. It was like there was no credentials, no nothing. Just he's from Wexford. So yeah, the fight went as you can expect it to go at the start, and you know, I was getting fucking hockeyed around the place, and you know, first time getting hit properly and all, and then you know the thing that's still with me today is that heart of mine, and it clicked in, and you know, I grinded through it, and I took him down, big double leg, took his back, and got the choke, and it was fucking, and again it was like full ground and pound, 4 ounce gloves. It wasn't amateur, and I was fighting a pro, so fuck me. But yeah, that was my first fight ever. Never mind like in a first mixed martial arts contest or anything, first fight ever, and yeah, so I'll never forget that. I'll never fucking forget that.
No, I really like that story as well. Just tell me the feeling. The first time getting punched in the face, what was the thoughts going through your head, if you can, even can you remember, because that was a long time. Once you get the first kind of slap, because they always say you always have a plan to get punched in the face, and this was your first time ever getting punched in the face, and it's in an
Yeah.
event.
Can't remember. I can remember thinking, "Fucking hell, this is different." You know what I mean? This is new to me. You know, but yeah. To be honest, if you look at a lot of my fights, when I fought Tommy McCafferty, when I fought Mick Brennan, it takes me a slap to get going sometimes. You know, and I've like I work with a great psychologist now at the moment, and he's like, "I want you," and same for the last fight. I want your corner man to hit you. And like, I goes, really? I goes, yeah, I want you to him to leather you. Because if that has to take you to wake you up, why do it? Why wait till the fight? And I was like, yeah, that's true. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, he gave me a good slap of a pad backstage. Do you know what I mean? And I was ready to go. You know what I mean? But often, like, you can go in and you can be a little bit complacent, or you're trying to figure things out. So, yeah, it's never. It's. I think that's a good little tactic for myself, anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because like if you get the slap in the fight, that slap could be the end of the fight. You
Yeah,
know, that sort of a way.
yeah,
We're gonna move on. So obviously, that was your amateur. Like it's a lot different now. Then you had your first pro fight against Andy Young. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and you won that one. Like, what was the difference between the amateur and pro at the time, or because it was regional, was there much difference in making the walk?
No, when I fought Andy, it was. I love that show. I always think back. I have such fond memories of the show. Me and Paddy Houlihan, Connor McGregor, and Philip Peter fought, and they're three guys that I just adore. I think they're the best guys. I love that. You know, I love the guys that came up. I love the guys that are training right now, but those lads, they all hold a special place in my heart. Anyway, that's for sure. And we all fought on that same show, and you know, things already kicked off before the fight. So I was so fucking nervous. First pro fight. Andy Young had knocked out his last two opponents. People online that, you know, were saying I was going to get knocked out too. I was real nervous. And I remember, like, everything that happened with the fight, even me and him done the medicals together, me and Andy, and we were sitting right opposite each other. And the doctors were like, yeah, his fucking heart rate is crazy. And Andy's heart rate is crazy. Everything was so tense and nervous. And then like I said, it was me, Connor, Paddy, and Phil, and things already kicked off before fighting. I was like, oh man, what am I doing here? You know, that kind of way. But I remember how smooth the fight went. I think the nerves really helped me. It was one of the times, like, obviously everyone gets nervous before a fight, but I felt so sharp and switched on. You know, every time Andy went to throw something, I met him with two shots. You know, yeah, I loved how that fight played out. But yeah, it was my first pro fight, and yeah, it wasn't as different. I suppose that transition from amateur to pro, because, like I said, those three amateur fights that I had were pretty much pro fights. You know what I mean? But it was the fact that you were starting your pro journey, so it was an
Yeah.
important one.
Yeah, so it was a huge milestone. And within your first couple of fights, obviously you fought a lot locally because, at the time there was a lot of local scenes, local shows. Now the seems to be coming back. What do you make of the amount of shows that we have now for the amateurs and for the early pros? Like, what you make of the amount that we have now? There seems to be one popping up every couple of weeks.
It's amazing, and again, the scene is different. Amateur back then, the shows were few and far between, so you treated every amateur fight like a pro fight, basically. Now, if I was an amateur and if I was in the scene now, I would be racking up as many amateur fights as I possibly could. I'd be getting used to the experience of not just fighting, but making the walk, making the weight, dealing with the nerves, dealing with all the the issues, and having contingency plans for all these little things that will occur in camp when you're professional. So it's getting the miles in, getting the minutes in. It's invaluable. So I think it's a fantastic thing for amateurs right now.
Yeah, no, it is great because a lot of them, when I talk to them, say they want to kind of reach like a 20 fight mark before they go
Yes.
pro, because then you've been put in every position, you've been hitting it with it. Obviously, new things are always going to arise, but like you said, contingency plans, experience,
Yeah.
making the walk, and especially making the weight. I think because the amateurs, they usually kind of walk around at their fight weight, and then towards the end they need to start making that cut.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, when I say make weight, it's more getting to understand nutrition a bit
Yeah,
better, to understand the recovery and sleep, and letting all those things impact. Forget sauna, forget like water loading. Don't worry about that as an amateur. Fight is how you walk around. And when you get to amateur, then, you know, or sorry, when you get to pro, then, and maybe you're coming to your last amateur fight, or last two, maybe then you can start, you know, experimenting a little bit, or putting plans in place to cut weight. But I'm hoping that part of the sport will be gone in a few years. I think, you know, it may be heading that way, that these ridiculous weight cuts are not there anymore. But that's only probably hope, rather than anything else. But yeah, as an amateur, just to gain the experience in all facets.
Yeah, because you see next to Kamza actually missed weight last night by like 8 pounds or something, and
Madness.
it's not good to be cutting that much weight in such a short space. Like that's going to affect your performance, affect your body in the long run. You also fought on Barma. You went on to Barma. What does like Barma as a promotion? What did that mean for you and for the acceleration of your career?
Yeah, look, I fought on a lot of promotions. The thing with Bama, it was in the Tree Arena. It was my first taste of the Tree Arena, um, and I loved it. My God, it was again, it was just a very surreal experience. You know what I mean? You start this sport as a fan, and then you're in an arena packed out with fans. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, the money with Bama, and you're looking around and you're looking at the revenue they must be taking in, and you're wondering, you know, okay, where's the rest of my purse? You know, and after selling hundreds of tickets here, and well, you know, that was a stepping stone to where I'm getting now. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But yeah, again, it done a lot for my career. You know, I fought a great fight and got a TKO in round one, and then when Bellator came around, you know, they were looking for a last minute replacement and against Daniel Weichel, and I took up my hand, and that's how I got with Bellator.
Because that's how she got you got in the door with Bellator, and then obviously you've been with them since.
Yeah.
Bellator, I think, are quite good for the Irish scene, because they bring on a lot. Like it's like the card is stacked with Irish. What do you make of Bellator as a promotion? I think what they're doing is great because it's given people who've just turned pro maybe their chance on a big stage, or giving people what do you make them? How is your dealings with been with
Oh,
them?
yeah, I love Bellator. I really, really do, and I see like a narrative happening for the last good few years of fighters just been inherently like spoiled almost. Giving out about promotions and slating promotions. I'll put my hand and say I love Bellator. I love dealing with them. What fans don't get to see is the personalities behind the scene. You know what I mean? The guys that their staff are fantastic, amazing, would do anything for you. You know what I mean? The show in general. You know, you're fighting in front of amazing crowds. We're blessed to be fighting in front of 10,000 plus Irish fans. Like who else can say that? You know what I mean? You know, it's huge. You know, I fought all over the world with them. You know, I've been treated very well, and I love their promotion. You know, and for the Irish scene, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and you know that is Bellator, but it's also the Irish fans. You know, us Irish, we just get behind. We back each other to the hilt. We get behind each other, and I think it's one of the coolest things about our culture. You know what I mean? You know, I always say for family and flag, I I would I would die for both. And when I'm in there on fight night, you've 10,000 people, and I feel that same energy off them.
Yeah, no, we get every. It doesn't matter what it is. I think I seen you bring this up in an interview before. Like when the crickets, remember when the cricketers were doing well? Everybody got behind them, and
Yeah, yeah.
like everybody gets behind them. But just like you said, you fought all over the world. You fought Hungary, Russia, Italy, the United States. What sets us apart? What sets it? Like sets it. You walk out, your music hits, and you walk out, and you're looking out into that crowd. What's going through your head? How are you feeling?
It's well, there's so much of a difference. It's crazy. But just I'm going to use a small example. I remember fighting in Hungary, and I was on the main card, and yeah, the reception was okay. Reception for everyone was kind of okay. And next minute I started throwing like elbows and knees, and next the crowd started rising a bit, and then they got behind me. All you need to do is take a step out onto the podium, and you have their full backing when you're in Ireland. You know what I mean? All you have to do is to be willing to make the walk, and people will get behind you. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to do anything. If you're Irish and you're fighting, everybody gets behind you. You know what I mean, from the very get go. But it's the energy that the crowd bring. It's like there's no lull from the first prelim to the very end. It's just noise, amazing, crazy noise, and it's just beautiful. Like to be a fan, I always think of I try to be as present as I can, but I always think in the future, what will I look back on? What will I be really, really proud of? What's going to be the points that I'll go, oh, yeah, I remember this in my career. There's so many, but that's going to be top of the list. That the noise, the crowd reaction, the love, the support.
Yeah, because you've like I said, you fought in other places. Because when you fought in Russia, there was actually an Irish card coming up. How did you feel? Because you missed that card, I believe, didn't you? It was like a month or two or a couple weeks
Yeah,
after. How
I
did you feel missing that one? But obviously, you came back for the
mm.
next one. How did it feel that you were fighting in Russia away when all the guys were going to be back in Ireland.
Yeah, Russia was a dark time for me, but putting that aside, obviously with the Irish card, I really wanted to fight in Ireland. It means so much to us. You know what I mean? It really does. You get to fight in front of your family, your friends, your support. I have supporters all over the world, which is crazy. It's still like a kind of a pinch me feeling. But in Ireland, people get behind me like all through it. I got a message from Cork the other night, and there was a girl saying, a lady saying, "Do you have a ticket link? There's about 60 of us traveling from Cork." And I was like, "Fuck, I actually don't have a ticket link, but thanks very much." You know what I mean? Because, I'm from County Wexford. I'm the only professional MMA fighter here. So obviously, I got a lot of support from this part of the world. I train in Dublin. The support I get from Dublin is tremendous. And I train in Cork because my wife is from Cork. So I've often trained in Cork, and them three areas I get a lot of love, but from all over the country I do, which is amazing. So obviously, when there's an Irish card happening, and I'm not part of it, I do feel that it does sting.
Yeah. How did that make you feel when someone from Cork is saying there's 60 people coming up from Cork?
Unbelievable, like unbelievable, and they always do. The Cork guys always give me huge support, and you know, I'm just blessed, man. Like this is stuff that again I seen MMA on the TV when I was in my early 20s, and I started the sport as a fan. I didn't start the sport as a martial artist who transitioned into MMA. I started as a fan. So to have fans or supporters of me is fucking. It's again pinch me moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. We touched on briefly there, Russia. Obviously, you said it was a dark time. Would you like to expand? Because, like, I heard you done a very good interview with Andy, about like you didn't sleep for a long time, panic attacks. It was a culmination of stuff, like issues over the years, and like just talk us through that time and how bad that was for you leading up to the fight, and then the night of the fight even.
Yeah. Look at I was literally only journaling last night. It's almost coming up to a year, and when I was journaling, I was saying how proud I was of myself to get from there to where I am now, and like I don't want to say, but it's my own fault for not dealing with things earlier. This was an accumulation of things, and Russia. I had a couple of incidents just before Russia was the straw that broke the camel's back. You know what I mean? If I'm being completely honest with myself, I should have went to speak to someone when I was 16, 17. When I was aware of these things, but I delayed it by 16 years. Do you know what I mean? 17 years. So it is my own fault in that sense. But you can't look back with regrets. You can only look forward. And what I'm doing now, I'm on a great path, and I'm doing brilliant things every day. Um, in a very sustainable way, which is important too. And I've good people in my life. I work with a great therapist. She's fantastic. I work with an excellent mindset coach in Kieran McGeaney, who's an idol of mine going back to GAA. Kieran is a good friend of mine, and to be able to work with him, I've learned an awful lot from him. So yeah, it was a dark period, but like when I look back, I used to look back at Russia being, oh Jesus, I feel sick thinking about it kind of job, but now I feel like proud that where I am now. You know what I mean? So, but I would just urge anyone to go and speak to a therapist. There's zero shame. There's just that stigma we have, and maybe this will resonate with people or whatever. But I remember the feeling I had going in there. I was like, what the fuck am I going to talk about? I feel like foolish going in to talk. Don't worry. Don't even let that talk cross your mind. When you go in there, you're working with a professional. They'll look after you from there. They'll know how to ask the right questions and say the right things. And there's a lot of stages of like me speaking to her, for instance, was me getting things off my chest that I had buried deep down that I didn't really know were issues. Me talking to Kieran was Kieran giving me things to work on a day to day, that the one percenters, as he fantastically calls them. And I'm proud of where I am right now. I'm proud of myself for doing so.
I'm glad you came through it, and like that, I think there is a huge stigma attached. It's getting better now with the likes of Tyson Fury, Paddy, people like that speaking out that to go speak to someone. And like, what was the reaction from your fans? Did you get a lot of messages saying, "Cause I seen you do this, I've now gone it," and I seen you got some messages like that. Like, how does that make you feel that you've potentially changed someone's pathway in life?
Like it's funny because when I spoke to my friends about it, I said like I've been to therapy. They think that I perhaps have OCD, and like most of them are like, yeah, no shit, Brian, you have OCD. That was kind of that. But from the like a supporter's reaction, people reaching out to me saying, I had my first session because I seen you done it, and I'm doing this now, and people are talking to me about like dark periods of time and going through addictions and going through different things, and for to me having any slight influence or to make them pick up a phone or to go and speak to someone, or to maybe they had it in their mind but that was just something that the straw that brought the camel's back for them in a good sense, that means a massive amount to me, a massive deal to me. And it's like, it's funny, when you look at school and you look at some of the things that your kids are learning in school and things like that, or that we learned in school, a lot of it isn't necessary. But I think that there should be a better pathway for kids to be able to express their feelings more. Maybe therapy should be a mandatory thing in school. You never know what. But yeah, the more people that will, I think a lot of people, most people will benefit from speaking to someone who has made it their business to be able to communicate with us.
Yeah, and hopefully if people do see this and they are feeling like that they can pick up a phone and go, like I said, you go in quite awkward and guarded, but like I said, they ask the right questions and get you to relax. And like I said, stuff comes up from that you have buried, you can't even remember.
Yeah, like from my perspective, it was having these OCD traits, or perhaps OCD, and when I would get very stressed and very anxious, it would you know explode, and I always just said that's just me, that's just who I am. But you know, me knowing that when I'm starting to feel this way, I'll go, okay, I don't need to be fucking sorting everything out at 3 a.m. and 2 a.m. There's obviously something wrong. There's something amiss here. And then I can find the root of what's making me feel that way. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah,
I've been able to identify triggers. I've been able to learn so much more about myself. And that's a huge tool for me. It's a huge eye opener. And again, I don't regret, but I would have loved to have had this all throughout. You know what I mean? But I have it now and I have it forevermore. And I feel like I'll say I'm a decent fighter and I'll say I'm a decent this, but I know like I'm a great father. I put so much time into it, but I'm a better father now. Do you know what I mean? I'm a better husband. I'm a better friend as a result. So I feel like if you want to better your life, it's something that people should really, really take into consideration.
yeah. Hopefully they do. I want to talk about with the OCD. Does that actually help you structure your training in certain ways? Does that actually, like, people view it as a bad thing necessarily, but it's not. I don't think so. There's benefits to it.
Yeah,
Does that help you structure your training, the way you look at fighters, the way you plan for fighters?
enormously so, especially the structure around training and the structure, sorry, around my camp and the structure around my own training. When I was told these three letters, that well, my she said that there's a strong possibility I can go get diagnosed if I want, but she goes, I wouldn't recommend it. You have the traits for sure, so why don't you work with that? So I did. I worked with it. I structure my camp fantastically. I don't doubt myself when I'm doing it. I don't do it in a stressful way. I'm not doing it in a reactive way. I'm good at organizing, and now I do that. And even for instance, like I have a phenomenal striking coach in Cormac O'Brien. I'd be ashamed not to mention him because he's made such an impact. But we work on everything off codes. Just about that, instead of combination, we work off codes. We'll dissect our favorite fighters and game plans that they've used, and we've codes on Sugar Ray Robinson, Roy Jones Jr. We've Rico, Verhoeven. We've codes on everything, and it works well because that's how my brain is structured for it. And I've made some massive developments in that aspect based on that alone by going with it and fighting against it, like I have been all throughout my career as such. So there's since these things have been made aware, I've been able to turn a lot of it into positives.
Yeah, because we've seen for the last fight you came back, leading into it, you were much happier. You seem much freer, more at ease.
Yeah.
There was a couple of things because I would be watching like interviews and profiles of you. There was one story you put up because I know you do your own striking as well, but there was one interesting one where you're doing strength and conditioning, and you were saying you do it by yourself because no one's in there with you, in the cage with you. Is that like a mindset thing that once you get locked behind that door, John can't help you, no one can help you, you're in there? Is that why you done that?
That's exactly why. I've probably maybe twice at this point, but my wife done my conditioning with me for my last conditioner, my last red zone, and every other one for the last three camps I've done it myself. I really feel that cardio is something that if you're my coach, you're not going to be able to say to me, "Come on, Brian, push harder." I'm going to be pushing harder because there's a guy there trying to take my head off. Do you know what I mean? But conditioning is, I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, I am a coach myself, but I'll fight anyone at this point. Your conditioning is more up here than anything to do with your cardiovascular system or anything like that. You need to know that you have always more in reserve. You always have more in the tank, and when you do your conditioning for fights, it's training that I'm tired here. Yeah, but fucking go. Oh, I can't catch my breath. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Go. What's going to be like when you're in a guillotine, or what's going to be like when you've just got hit by a body shot? You know what I mean? You're training your mind and body in these conditioners, and that's why I do it by myself, because it doesn't matter what anyone else is going to say. I'm there by myself. There's 3 men in that cage, and one is refereeing. You know what I mean? It's me and my opponent, so that's why I had my wife doing it, because it was my last red zone conditioner. It was on that treadmill, full speed, full incline, and I'm going to max effort until I literally can't. I have to grab the treadmill. So there's a lot going on. I asked her to monitor my heart rate, to monitor my recovery, to monitor my times before I failed, and my times for recovery. So there was a lot going on. And I brought my youngest daughter in, because, what else is going to motivate me more? Only my kid, you know what I mean? So all I had to do was look over there, and that was going to give me more seconds on that for sure, But yeah, I've always done my conditioning by myself. I always find that, I do better.
Yeah. With the likes of the motivation, like I said, your kids motivate you a lot. You seem like such a family man, and that's what kind I think endears you to a lot of people. Like, how much do your daughters and your wife? They seem to mean more than anything in the world. I'm not saying it's not to everyone else, but like you just seem like the doting father.
I am. I'm the luckiest man to have them. Like I literally, I often go, what? How did I get this? How did this happen? I know you can work hard for the house you're in, or the car you drive, or whatever, but like when you get children like that we've been blessed with, or meeting my wife just by that beautiful chance, that is a blessing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm blessed in that sense. You know what I mean? And so I'll never ever ever take that for granted. Those 3 girls are everything to me. And I do everything for them. I'm given one chance at life. And I'm making my business to spend as much time as I can with them, to love them more than possible. And to give them everything that they want in their life. You know what I mean? And putting material stuff aside, I think one of the best things you can give your kids is love, support, and they get that in abundance, and they're both off myself and my wife. So they're my everything. Simply put, you know.
Yeah, you can see that from your posts, from your stories that you are. There's one picture I want to talk about for a minute. It's the picture, I believe it's after Russia, isn't it, where you're on the phone. Like, when I look at that picture, this is what I see. It seems like there is an air of disappointment, but also relief. Would I be right in making that assessment?
I'm gonna give a. I'm not going to talk about the. Well, I don't care. I just want to bore you. But like with the Russia thing, I was going through a torrid time, and then I arrived there on fight night, and the warm up was just, I didn't care for it. I didn't, whatever. And then when I was in the cage itself, I was so numb, and I felt sorry for my opponent, to the point that he elbowed me and he cut me open, and I was like, I still felt something for him. I felt like empathy. I felt weird, to the point where um, we were in the third round, and I passed into like a mount position. If you give me mount and anything, look at any other fight I've ever had before Russia, I'm gonna try and murder you with an elbow. As soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna try an elbow. It's my go-to. When I throw a punch, there's a good chance of overhook, underhook. But when you throw an elbow, you're cutting and you're hitting with the hardest part. And I was just about to, and I went, no, no, I won't. I'll just pass and try to get a sub. I felt sorry. I don't know what it was. I felt, I didn't feel like a fighter. I didn't feel like fighting. So I went backstage, and obviously I lost. Coming into the last 30 seconds, I was like, right, it's competition. Just try win the competition rather than winning the fight, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Didn't feel like a fighter. I've always felt like a fighter. In that, I didn't feel like anything. And then I went backstage, and it all started settling in that, okay, I lost the fight. And I was like, all right, I lost the fight, but I still felt pretty numb to it. And then I rang my wife to let her know that I was okay. Do you know what I mean? Because she's always worried about me. And my daughter was still up, and she came on the phone, and that's when I hit home. That's when I hit home that, I need my family. What I'd went through the last few days, I needed them, but that was the point where there was thousands of miles separating us, and there was nowhere else I wanted to be with them. And it was, it really hit home then, what I was going through and how much I needed them. So it was a weird one, but it probably was not probably, it was an absolutely vital part and a necessary part of my life. And like I said, things have been great since. And it was funny because then I went on to the Lugo fight, and everything felt like good. Everything felt like happy. And I think everything went really well with the Lugo fight, bar that ruthlessness that I always bring into fights. Do you know what I mean? That I'm gonna take your head off. That wasn't there with Lugo. It became a technical chess match that I still think I won, but I wasn't taking chances. I wasn't biting down on the gum shield and going forward a little more. So that's what I've tapped into a lot more for this fight. Yeah, I love life and I love everything around it, but I'm gonna certainly you're gonna see the old Brian Moore in that, where there'll be no mercy for this man, not a screed.
The killer instinct's going to come back.
Yeah, because I liked Lugo. He was similar to myself. He had two daughters. He was a family man. He was a good guy, and I respected him. And I didn't go as hard as I could. I fought well. I fought technically. But it didn't. There was no killer instinct. Again, there was that kind of feeling was there. That for him. But not with this guy. This guy's trying to take away from me now. Like he's trying to take away from my girls inside, and he's a dead man. He's a dead man.
Do you think, obviously you're saying that you felt with Lugo, since you've got with the sports psychologist, would that be something that he said you need to remove? Like, do you need to depersonalize fighters then before you go in to get the killer instinct?
Yeah, like one of the things in martial arts, almost like a cliche, is don't fight with emotion. I fight better when I fight with emotion, but it's not showing emotion. So like, if you hit me, and I'm not gonna go, oh you fucker, my nose. I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna be emotional, but I'm gonna hide it. But I'm gonna use it. There's a difference with fighting with emotion and showing it, and fighting with emotion and using it. And I'm gonna go back to that emotion that makes me who I am. Going back to my first amateur fight when I was petrified, I used that emotion to overcome being an enormous underdog to come back and win a fight. To when I would fought with fought with all these guys where I got hit, and okay, now I'm going to use the emotion to win and turn the tide. And with this guy, I have no time for him. I feel like he's a cheat in more ways than one, and I'm going to punish him for that. I feel I'm going to use the emotion that against him.
Yeah, you said you feel he's a cheat, and what aspect do you feel he's a cheat?
Well, I don't like making assumptions.
Yeah.
It's not one of the things I like doing. But he's he's 39 or 40. He looks like a little bodybuilder. I'm sure he has some PEDs in his system, or have throughout his career. I've seen him fight and he should have been disqualified for this. A guy had him on. He was on top. Guy elbowed him, and he held his face as if like it was an illegal shot. Referee said no, it was a perfectly legal shot, and he's like, okay, then it's fine. He kept fighting again. If you stop a fight, you've stopped the fight. You have said, I've had enough.
Yeah.
So he's a cheat, and I have no time for him. He's fucked if he thinks he's coming over here and he's taken away from me. Do you know what I mean? I let it go to the judges the last time. That's a mistake I'll never make again. It's going to be, I'm going to fight tooth for nail to put him unconscious. That's for sure.
Yeah, because out of your wins, your 14 wins, 10 of them are actually by stoppage, 6 submission, 4 TKOs. And then when it does get left to the judges, you seem to get the short end of the straw, don't you?
Like any time I've won by decision has been when I have beaten the guy by 30-25, 30-26. Anytime it's close, no. And there's been fights where you can look back at it. I fought in Liverpool. I beat a guy very clearly 29-28. Even 30-27, you could go that far. The crowd were like, remember my wife was in the crowd at the time. She's been to all my fights, and she was like talking to his supporters, and they're like, yeah, your guy obviously won that. And I got the split. I got beat by majority decision. We found out afterwards that 3 of his teammates were judges. So it's just got
That's crazy.
going back to the Wild West shit. But yeah, I've been on the short end of it with decisions. But it's up to me to finish fights. So whatever. I have to be willing to take that on the chin.
Yeah, so with this fight, what way do you study opponents, like quite like to see what they're good at, see what they're bad at? Because obviously I've looked at your opponent coming up. Guillotine seems to be his go-to choice. So, like, do you look at what they do? Is there much tape on them to study?
There's a lot of tape on him. Yeah, we've seen it. And firstly, it's me and my team. So obviously John and Dave up in SPG HQ have done their homework and given me their thoughts. Again, we'll go back to Cormac O'Brien, my striking coach. He's down here 3 days a week with me. We have done sessions where we've put tape on him and we've assessed and we've together. We're on the same wavelength, me and Cormac, so it's great. But we've game planned it. Last night's session was with me, my striking coach Cormac, and then we had Jason Kearns, who's a very good friend of mine. He's been in my corner for the last 3 fights, and he mimicked them, and we done sparring rounds, and so it's great. But yeah, from the start of the camp, we look at him a little, but we work on me. And then as we get a little bit closer, maybe 4 or 5 weeks out, we start nailing down the game plan based off what we think we can capitalize on, but also what we've been nailing in training. And yeah, we don't get too worked up on what he can do. We're aware. We're aware of his strengths. We're also aware of his weaknesses. And we know damn sure what we can do. We know that he's a good squeeze. He's a little roid head. Most of them do. That he's going to be, he has a good guillotine. So we're aware of that, and I remember one session that springs to mind. This is the home gym, and like I get a lot of good jiu-jitsu guys down here, and we started one training session. It was like an hour and a bit of just me being in a fully locked, almost ready to go out guillotine, and then we start, So we've been working very hard on that, and my neck isn't thankful for all the shit I put it through the last few weeks, but it's been a great camp in that sense because honestly I've never felt more supported with the people around me. John has always been amazing. Dave has been an amazing addition to SPG. My wife, kids couldn't be more supportive. My mom and dad, my family are amazing. But the team that I have around me for this has just been phenomenal. It's been so good to have, on my doorstep.
Yeah, it'd be good. I can't wait for the fight. I can't wait to see, like I said, back with the killer instinct, not leaving it to decision, putting them out or putting them to sleep, one or the other, or,
Yeah.
or getting them in the sub. So, to your career to date, right, I just want you to ask you a couple of questions on fights, favorite fights. What would be your favorite finish that you've ever had?
Oh, I like the Giorgio Belsanti one. Studied him. I knew he was going to lead with a right hand. I slid through a right hand and he just dropped like an elevator. And I remember a friend of mine, he's a neurologist, asked me afterwards, why did you hit him again when he was on the ground? You woke him up? And I did, but then I got him into a guillotine. So I felt like in round one, I knocked him out and guillotine or subbed him in the first round. I like the Simone Dana fight, the knockout, the uppercut. He was a fucking far bigger guy than me. I took him on short notice, and I was going to fight bantamweight, and I was kind of very much on the way down to bantam, and he couldn't make it. So we went. My original opponent pulled out, but the Dana fight was good because he put me into a bit of bother, and I just bit down on that gum shield and done the right things. Brought the uppercuts in, got the right hand counter, and then Conor McGregor, I remember, showed me one of the first days of his striking class. You aim your jab to the chest, you bring in the overhand. When you have him in a bit of bother, that'll just get that little movement going, and it was just a clean knockout. I love that fight too.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on then. Your favorite fight, and it doesn't have to be whether it's performance or what, it could have got to do with the atmosphere, the crowds, the camp leading up to it. What would your favorite fight be thus far? If you can pick one from all the fights that you've had.
I really love the atmosphere for the last fight, the Lugo fight, and I felt like I won it. It was just that, and the preparation felt so good. If getting the decision would have been the cherry on top, getting a knockout and going in with that bit of rootlessness would have been even better again. But anytime I fought in the Tree Arena has been just magic. When I fought AJ there, that was huge. When I even fought back in the Bama Day against Mick and McBrennan, and we like just these ones were huge. But all my fights are memorable in their own sense, good and bad. The most memorable was probably the Dave Hill fight in Cage Warriors. I've had two surgeries on my heart, and that was the first episode I had on my heart during that fight. I remember about 2.5, 3 minutes into that fight, I felt really good, felt very comfortable, was landing my shots, and in my heart I went to like, well, I can, it's been there before with a 300 to 400 beats per minute.
Wow.
So I felt like I was having a heart attack in there, and I didn't stop. I didn't give up, and it was memorable in the wrong sense. But I learned an awful lot about myself that night. That even though I remember going to round three, and I remember Carl Tanswell, rest in peace, came into my corner because he knew something was up. He knew something was amiss, and he gave me advice. He said there's nothing he can do now to break you. You've seen everything that he has. And I remember turning her back around and looking at Dave Hill, and I said, yeah, this is my last. This is the last of me. This is it. But I wasn't ready to give up. You know, I didn't think I was going to make it out of that fight alive, to be perfectly honest. And thankfully, it was a thing called SVT. But at the time, I thought I was having a heart attack. It was so fucking scary. So that was the most memorable in the shittiest sense. But the most memorable in the best sense is, yeah, give me any of the 3 arena days. And, you know, I'm going to make the 23rd the most memorable.
And what would be your favorite performance to date so far?
Fuck.
That could also be
Yeah.
one of the knockout side or subs,
Yeah.
because they're most of your win.
Yeah, I get you. There's lots that spring to mind. My first pro fight, I was so nervous. But remember, I was telling you I was fighting Andy Young, and I told my wife, just don't come to this, because like I just want to go up and not have to worry about you traveling or anything like that, you know. And I ended up beating him by knockout in the third round, and I left the cage. I was handed a check before I was off the steps by the promoter. It was so weird, for a couple of £100. And then I looked to my left and my wife was standing right there. She travelled up, she wouldn't miss it. You know, that was memorable. When I fought in Waterford, just down the road, and my father and mother came over. Big hug after I beat him by first round sub. You know, but you know, just the 3 arena and the magic of the crowd, the embrace, it was just phenomenal. Jumping the cage, and yeah, it's just, there's, to be honest, I can't pick one.
Yeah.
I've had a fantastic career, and I have so much more to give.
Yeah, we can't wait to see how much more you have to give. But I'm going to ask you one last question, and it's got to do with, once your career is over, what would you like to be remembered, or how would you like to be remembered as a fighter, or even as a person?
As a person, I want to be remembered as, you know, a good person with a good heart, and a good father and a good husband. That to me is real important. Like I said, I don't really care what people think of me anymore. I probably did way too much when I was a teen, and when I was probably in my early 20s. But as long as they remember me as being a good influence and a good father and things like that, that's important to me, and a good husband. But fighting career and legacy, I'm a very proud Wexford man, and our crest says to fight with heart in hand. You know, Le Cri Agus Love, and I've always fought with my heart. Um, you know, I've shown that time and time again. So if people remember me and say, yeah, that guy, he had a huge heart. He always fought. So I suppose in both senses, you know what I mean, heart, to be remembered for that.
Yeah, because you do fight with heart, you make it gritty, you make it hard. So
Mm.
I want to thank you so much for your time. This
No,
has been
thank
an
you.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming
Thank you very
down.
much.
Appreciate it.